Hello and welcome to the Saba Show Round 17 recap. Now I know that the West Coast North game is yet to happen at the time of filming this, but I wasn't planning on covering the game, so I'm just going to get this out as soon as possible. I covered a lot of games, actually no, I covered 4 games this week, but I've done a bit more in-depth analysis. Anyway, let's hop into the first game. Port Adelaide played Melbourne on Thursday night, and this one, look, I said in my predictions that Port Adelaide were not going to win this one, and Dixon was going to phase out of the game, and that happened pretty much. Dixon kicked 2 goals. He kicked 1 on the final siren, and he kicked 1 from a free kick on the halftime siren. The success of Port is very dependent on stuff like that. Look, first quarter, or first half in general, there were some brilliant goals being kicked. The Demons, you know, they were just clean. They looked better when they were kicking it in transition. They were taking like one-handed grabs and just turning stuff into good results, really. Like I think Cozzy Pickett, absolutely nuts by him. He kicked 1 goal from a 50-meter penalty, and that was, I think, off some pretty questionable umpiring. But the other 2 goals were off a couple steps from about 45 out. Just clean drop punts. Bailey Fritsch turned what looked like a Port Adelaide intercept into a goal of his own. He did this like dribble kick from about 45 out as well. So very high quality game. Melbourne looked like they were going to run away with this one. Port came back late in the second quarter, and it looked like we had a bit of a ball game. And then Melbourne, you know, they just found all the answers every time Port got closer. The Demons always had an answer. Petrarca was absolutely massive. 3 goals and 33 touches by him. That has to be 3 Brownlow votes easily. Alia, he was getting chucked all over the place. I think what is so good about the Demons is they force adjustments, but like really obscure ones, if you know what I'm saying. Like there's your typical adjustments, and then there's stuff we've never seen before. We've never seen Alia play ruck, back, forward, pretty much everywhere, all over the ground. So they needed to do that, and it sort of unsettled the power in what they wanted to do. Alia is naturally an intercept defender, but he wasn't allowed to do that because he was pretty ineffective. Yeah, look, Port, they've lost to another top side. They're sitting, I think, in 5th position on the ladder right now. You think, I don't know what their run home is like, but you've got to win a couple games against these top 8 sides, because you go into finals, if you're sitting 5th, odds are you're not going to get past the second week if you're losing games to top 8 sides. Look, very good win by the Ds. They are legit. They could win a premiership. I don't know, but this has been a monumental shift from what was a far cry a few years ago where Goodwin looked like he was on his way out. But Melbourne stuck with him, and fair play, because he is leading a very good football side. Let's move on. So Essendon played the Crows on Friday night, and this was fairly ugly. Darcy Parish was held by Harry Schoenberg pretty well, actually. But everyone else was on song. Jake Stringer started slow, but he got into the game. Adelaide's forward line looked like a complete mess without Taylor Walker. His presence is absolutely invaluable to this side. He brings attention. The best defenders forced to play on him, but with a game like this, all the Essendon defenders looked brilliant, mainly because they had a lot of inexperienced Adelaide forwards to deal with. Billy Frampton, he had a few howlers. Riley Thilthorpe, he's only played a dozen games, probably less. So there wasn't really threat there. And then when the ball hit the deck, there wasn't really a threatening small forward for the Crows either. So hence, that's the reason why they ended up kicking 2 goals on the night. But look, for the Bombers, you know, very strong win by them. They needed to win this one. They're in the finals hunt. Archie Perkins had a ripper game. I think it'll be very stiff to not get a Rising Star nom. He could have ended with 5. He kicked 3 goals, 3 I believe. I think the scoreline does the Crows justice because the Bombers missed plenty of chances in the last quarter to absolutely blow this one out of the water. Yeah, the Crows never really got going. And on top of that, they had a couple injuries. Seedsman went out. He was probably one of their best on the night. He went out in the last quarter. And Tom Doedee, absolute courage. I think the game was pretty intense early, and you could see the toughness in that little sequence where Doedee went back with the flight. It was probably a bit of an idiotic move. Future captain right there. I'm pretty sure he's filled in as captain before, or some form of leadership there. He may be a vice captain or something, or in the leadership group. I'm pretty sure he is, but that's the kind of stuff you want to see from. He's only young as well, so setting an example as a young player is a really good sign for the football club. And then after that, I think Zach Merritt did a chase down tackle and did some pretty selfless stuff, handing it off to Stringer. I believe he kicked a goal from that. But, you know, stuff like that was basically how the night went for the Bombers. I think something really important as a key forward, if we go back to that for just a second, is that you're offering up the ground. And look, Phil Thorpe and Frampton weren't doing enough of that, offering themselves to help the transition forward, because they couldn't really get it past halfway, or they were pretty disjointed all night. So if you present yourself further up the ground, it allows for a bit more ball movement, because at least you're putting yourself in the position to take a couple marks. But there were a lot of nearly moments for those two. It's understandable in a way, but in terms of this season, you can't be relying on players like Taylor Walker to carry the load. I mean, we saw it earlier in the year when there was a lot of strain on him to kick goals, and now we're seeing them kick 2 goals in a match without him. So something pretty expected. But look, strong win for the Bombers again, a percentage boost for them. We didn't cover the Freo Hawthorn game that much. I watched about a quarter and a half of this one. Look, the Hawks, I'm just going to put in a quick note for them. The Hawks are in damn trouble. Where are their defenders, man? They don't have, I think, Hardwick was a late withdrawal. They lost CJ, who could be out for the season. They lost Scrimshaw to a concussion, so they don't have him next week. And then on top of that, No Day. They've got Frost left, really. And then they've got a lot of inexperienced guys. Lockie Bramble, I think, had 27 touches, so he could be someone they look to support the back line. But they are depleted, man, and it's going to be a long road to the end of the season. I was very wrong with this prediction as well. It started when Tim O'Brien got dropped at selection, and I said he'd kick 2. But look, I think the Hawks are going to go full trust the process mode. They've got to just infiltrate their team with youth and just run them for the next year, 2 years, whatever. Because I think that's simply the best thing for them. They can't have 27-year-olds that offer nothing, just running around. You know, like no offense, but like players like Daniel Howe. He's not going to be that explosive type for you, is he? He's never been. He's been more of a tagger, but players like those taking up spots for someone else in the VFL that could be doing a better job. So that's why I thought someone like Jai Newcombe was pretty stiff to get dropped last week. But Fremantle, fair play. Rory Lobb had an absolutely banging game. Probably his best of the season. So good on them. They're in the 8 now for the moment. I think they'll stay in the 8 because West Coast are the only team to play. So good on Fremantle. They are in the top 8, and it hasn't seemed like they've played their best football, but they're there. So fair play to them. And I went to the Carlton Geelong game. This was one of the weirdest games I've ever watched. Carlton were 1 goal 13 at one point. Get that. 1 goal 13. And look, I thought, when I say that, you'd think that we were getting killed by 10 goals at that stage. No, it was 3 goals the margin. We were in the game until the last quarter. We'll start with a couple positives. Sam Walsh, I think there was a play in the last quarter where, he kicked a goal from it. It was the snap. Something I love to see when I go watch a Carlton game is watching Sam Walsh's work rate live. He had the ball on the wing, and he followed that all the way up, got the hands, and then ran another 30 on top to finish it off. That second goal shows the exact class we needed on the night. Matt Kennedy had something very similar from the same spot, and he blew it when we needed a goal. So that's what we were lacking, you know. It's been a problem. We had the opportunity, but it's just like we don't want it. And that's really disappointing for a side that is undergoing an internal review. They're still mathematically in the hunt. But look, they had their chances. It didn't help that we lost Liam Jones before the bounce. Credit to Lockie Plowman for doing a damn good job on Radaglia. I think he only kicked one. Jacob Wiedering, absolute monster. He held Tom Hawkins to no goals, I think. But Gary Rowan and a variety of other players. Zach Tui came into the game. Lockie Henderson. I don't know why he was getting booed in the first quarter. Mate, he's been gone for 5 years. That's the same with Tui. I don't know why we were booing them. But look, I said before the game that if we do our bombing strategy into the forward line, we're going to kick 4 goals. We got pretty close to that 4-goal outcome. But it wasn't necessarily because we couldn't muster the chances. It was because we didn't take our chances. We looked pretty shit going through the middle. The bogey part of the ground was the half-back flank. Liam Stock had an absolute howler of a kick. I don't know what that was. I thought he was just trying to do some cheeky snap. Then you look at the replay back at home, and that was the most awful ball drop I've ever seen. But for the most part, he played a fairly good game. But then there's some really interesting selection tactics. Why is Setterfield in? Why is Zach Fisher an emergency, but he's not fit? Cripps just needs a break, I think. 2 weeks off. Bring him back for a strong run home. Fair play to Geelong. They did not play a very good game of football either, but they just managed to get the job done. They held Harry Mackay pretty well. He didn't take his chances either, but, you know, it is what it is. For those people slandering David Teague, stop. This was not his loss. This was not his fault. This was a player execution problem. This was a problem with goal conversion. This was a problem with field kicking. So that's something we need to work on because it's been a problem all year. It sucks, but please, I just want to see improvement. And then I got home in time to watch the last quarter of the St Kilda Brisbane game to absolutely see the Saints roll the Lions. They got demolished. It was an absolute avalanche. Jack Steele, huge last quarter. He kicked 2 big ones. Those are the performances you need from a captain. It was a huge win in shaping the 8. They're only, I think, a win out. And they've had a very strong month. This is the momentum you need going into the final month and a bit of the season. If you can get this momentum going, a lot of confidence, a lot of belief in the team, you believe you can win every game. And look, I think that's going to be very key in the outcome for the Saints season. But look, the Eric Hipwood loss is huge, much similar to the Aaron Norton loss for the Bulldogs, who also lacked another goal-kicking target inside the forward 50. It's going to be very interesting to see who the Lions bring in for Hipwood. They don't have like a notable go-to replacement, which I think will really hurt their damage on the offensive end. The Saints, as I said, huge win against a very strong last quarter team. You'd think Brisbane were going to have all the strength to get home, but the Saints had the resilience. They look like a new side. Tom Highmore looked like a prime defender. He was taking intercepts left, right, and centre. The forward line was functioning. It was good to see that too. Kicking goals at a very efficient rate. We go to the GWS Gold Coast game. I didn't see much except the last 2 minutes. I'm convinced GWS are just casually avoiding the finals. They had this one in the bag and then they blew it. The Whitfield loss. Supposedly, I mean, I didn't see the game, but you'd think that Whitfield's run was key to giving the Giants the drive to win this game, because he's so important in their chains to go forward. Took Miller, absolutely not human. It's no secret, it's no doubt about it. Probably a Brownlow Smoky, but mate, you'd be disrespecting him if you said he's a Smoky. He's genuinely up there. And I think something that will probably deter him from getting it is how well the Suns have been doing this year. But this man is an absolute machine. I think he had more than 10 tackles, more than 10 clearances. He kicked 2 goals. He had 35 touches. Are you serious? He has just taken a huge step up, and, you know, just his grit, his work rate is so important to the Suns' success. If they lose him to injury or, I don't know, some trade, they're not getting rid of him now, but if they lost him for some reason, I can't imagine how this Suns side would look. But they've had a very strong last 2 weeks. They'll be full of confidence. It's very important for the football club because you want your players to hang around. And if your team believes they can win, then they're going to hang around. But look, though I watched those last 2 minutes. What was the Giants players doing? That wasn't English. But Brent Daniels and Phil Davis, they had chances around the forward 50. Daniels had a more clear-cut chance, but he decided to do some chip kick. I feel like I know he had the right idea, because I think Finlayson was open, but he just kicked it in between the Suns defender and Finlayson. It was just a pretty brain-dead kick, to be honest. Especially when you're down by a point very late in the last. You don't know how long's left. You just got to go for the big sticks. And same with Phil Davis. He was being selfless. He had the right idea as well. I think it was a 2v1. There was a Gold Coast player chilling in the goal square, and there were 2 Giants players trailing back to goal, and he chipped it into the space, but time was up. Yeah, they absolutely fluffed this opportunity, and they've lost to Hawthorn and Gold Coast 2 of the last 3 weeks, and that is huge for them. And I think it's even more of a kick in the guts that they bloody beat Melbourne away from home. It's a very interesting season, plenty of upsets, but fair play to Gold Coast. As I said, very strong 2 weeks. Speaking of upsets, Collingwood. I've never been more hyped for a Collingwood win in my life, and I think that's a crime for a Carlton supporter to say that. But look, I was so hyped for this one, primarily because, well, Collingwood beat Richmond. I hate Richmond, but also because it was just non-stop. There was pressure moments. There were big moments. As I said, the pressure was up pretty much all game until the last quarter where fatigue set in, and that's understandable. But the crowd was involved. I was up on my feet in my house. But look, Richmond took the control early. They were up by about 5 goals at one point, I think. It didn't do Collingwood justice because Collingwood worked very hard. Their forward line is just... It had the likes of Will Kelly, Ollie Henry, who were playing... They haven't played more than 10 games in the senior side. So you had those guys running around the forward line. I think Collingwood, something different in comparison to last week, in which they stormed home, was that they hung around this time. They were down by 14 at 3/4 time. So... it just allowed them a little window to get back into the game. And, you know, they did. All their big guns came alive in the last quarter. The last quarter was pretty much a product of them putting together what they lacked earlier on. They were just taking marks. They were allowing the forwards to lead in the space because they were moving the ball much quicker. And the Richmond forwards did not have time to react. I think there was a play where the Collingwood defender, the Tigers had just kicked a point, and the Collingwood defender rushed it out for the kick-in. And it resulted in, I'm pretty sure, a goal on the other end because they moved it that quickly. And it really puts a Richmond team that is so reliable on defence, it puts them off guard, and it worked. You know, De Goey had a huge last quarter. Grundy, he wasn't himself for the first 3. Mabior Chol, credit to him. He went with Grundy for the first 3, but then Grundy just took hold. He went down to the goal square and kicked one. Taylor Adams, he was just in and under all day. He didn't stop trying, and, you know, he was crucial. He was pivotal in their clearance dominance in the last quarter. The Tigers got absolutely smashed in possessions. And that's where all the Collingwood success came from. Jack Crisp earlier on, when the Pies weren't, they were struggling to get on the scoreboard. He was really driving their possession, their movement from the back half, constantly getting handball receives. Richmond, they're in trouble. They have lost their last 4. They're sitting in 12th position. They have a lot of players injured. They need players back. If they want to have any chance. And they got Brisbane next week, which is shaping up as a huge contest because Brisbane are hungry. They lost to the Saints. They need to redeem themselves. So it's going to be another very interesting game. If they lose that, I think they're cooked. Given Richmond still had a bit of quality in their side, it was very uncharacteristic for them to give up a lead like that and not have any answers left. They put Dusty in the goal square, but they couldn't get it down to him. And when they did, players like Isaac Quainer were really important. I think there was a crucial one-on-one on the wing, and Quainer held his own. Usually Dusty gets his players out of the way, but Quainer held his own. And it was that combination of young and old that really did the job for the Pies. When Ollie Henry took a one-handed pluck in the final 5 minutes, you just knew that this was going to be Collingwood's day. I think with the Tigers, they put their youth through the wars earlier on. Thompson Dow had a good run. I think he had 6 touches in the first quarter and then went missing. Ryan Garthwaite, he held up well for the first 3, but like many of the other Richmond defenders, they were vulnerable later on. Liam Baker, he had a pretty strong game. Sydney Stack didn't do too bad, coming back from a long absence. And Collie Dawkins had his moments, but, you can't expect players like these to be taking the game by the scruff of the neck and winning the game off their own boot. That's for Dusty Martin and Tom Lynch and those guys. And yeah, as I said, the Brisbane contest is absolutely huge. Anyway, that'll be all. We'll see how West Coast do tonight against North. If they lose that, it's going to be even more interesting. This season just keeps on getting more and more interesting. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This was an absolutely mammoth recap, but we will see you on Thursday.